believe it or not, I was waiting for podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how it was going to show its ugly head
Mm-hmm.
because what made it, my life without my comedy career, without telling these stories, made me a mediocre comic. I always knew I would watch HBO boxing. How many times do you watch a boxing? You're like, look at this fucking dude. I don't like this motherfucker. But then he's married. He's got 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
His mother lives with him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's a fucking. And now you get to learn more about the guy. And you're like, wow, maybe I'll watch him now.
Yeah.
I always knew if I could tell my story,
People. Yeah.
that would be it.
Yep.
That's a great point.
Dude,
Yeah.
I always
and
knew
that's
that.
also the problem with the new world. Like, nobody takes a second to learn anything about anybody other than read like one tweet or hear one story. Because like everybody's got their shit that they're dealing with, or a reason why something went wrong, or the reason why they did something bad, or whatever. But nobody takes the time or cares.
Once
But-
you learn, like, you can learn one thing, you're like, I don't like them. Then the second thing, no matter what it is, you're like, oh, they're human.
Yeah,
And it's
right.
like-
Yeah,
That's it.
humanizes
They're
it.
It's a lot easier.
And then
They
I
made
mean, you
mistakes,
are like
and they said shit. Now I know why they said that shit. Now I know what they were protecting.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know why they
Why
spoke
they do what
like
they
that.
do.
Why
Yeah.
I know what you
Yeah.
do. It makes it a lot easier. If I told you a story about kidnapping, we would laugh, and then you'd walk out of here and go, ugh. If I told you any of these stories individually on the first or second meeting, you would leave and go, I don't know about that fucking guy. But if you read that beginning,
Right.
if you
everything
read
about
that
your upbringing,
beginning,
your father and your mother,
Harlem
and, your sister,
and all that shit, you know.
Yeah.
I was like a confused kid. Then I went up to 148th Street. Those Irish motherfuckers were not confused. Those Puerto Rican and Irish kids and black kids
Bro.
were not confused on 148th Street. Their parents were poor, but they didn't cry.
Yeah.
They were out there hustling every day, shoveling snow, breaking windows, because they were shaking down. They were 8 and 9.
Yeah, I was surprised to read that you said you were like growing up, you were very sickly and kind
Sickly,
of like you
sickly.
got pushed
After my
around a little
father
bit.
died, it's funny. My
Yeah.
neighbor, Joey, little kid, he's 7, and he came to the game Saturday, and his mother said he had strep throat and his temperature, and she goes, "We just had this problem 3 weeks ago," and I'm like, "Man, that sounds like
Sounds
me."
familiar.
Hospital
Because I would have thought
visits.
from Jump Street you were like the tough kid on the block and all that.
No, man. After my dad died, that took a
Okay.
lot. That takes a lot out
Yeah.
of you.
You also you gloss over on page 1. You said you and your mom made it out of Cuba, but your sister didn't.
My sister did.
That was just like a sentence.
My
That
sister-
right there is going to give you went through a lot of shit as a
My
young
sister
kid.
died a year ago
Oh, sorry to hear that.
in Cuba.
Shit.
I got the
Stayed-
call while I was doing a podcast that
No
she
way.
had died. I got the call like 2 weeks earlier that she was sick
Mhm.
and that they didn't think she was going to make it, but they called and she died. I never saw her again after Cuba in 1966.
Oh, man.
No way.
And-
You're
crazy.
And that's my mother's backstory. That's what killed her.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, that-
she was Miss fucking Met every day, smoking dope and drinking at the bar. But 2 in the morning, it came back to your daughter. When you're out
Yeah.
and you're
Oh.
partying, you forget about your kids and all your
Yeah.
problems. It's when you walk in that door at midnight and you're like,
Ugh.
now the four
Can't even
walls creep
imagine.
up on you.
Yeah,
And so
big time.
eventually it just got to her and got to her. She lost the bar, and I saw somebody die right in front of my eyes, but it wasn't immediately. Looking back, it's a small process. It was a process. Like I saw it. So now if I catch that again, I'll intervene now.
Mhm.
It's everything. Like I just saw her spirit break,
Mhm.
and so I got to learn a lot from that. So even that'll my mother's story, when you read about her, you're like, this bitch caused a lot of problems. But she also put 2 kids through college, her grandsons.
I mean,
You know.
with the hand that she
And I didn't go to fucking college on my mother's nickel.
Yeah.
But her goddaughter, both her goddaughters went to college. My mom did a lot of good things. And
Yeah.
and she raised me the best that she could, considering she lived with 9 brothers and sisters in a fucking hut in Cuba. And at night, they would get attacked by cicalia bugs. They couldn't sleep with the lights. I mean, it was just horrible. And then my mother's sister got raped. And she fucking stabbed the guy
killed
and
the guy,
fucking
yeah.
killed him. So she had to come here. So all those little stories got to me. And at one point, in all my drug addictness and all my stupidity, I'm like, man, my mother didn't come here for me to be a fucking jerk off. This has to stop.
Mhm.
This behavior has to stop.
Right.
My mother's plans for me were to pay back the United States for accepting us.
Yeah.
It meant my mother was like, you're going to the Army. And then you're going to law school. And then you're going back into the Army. And you're going to stay there for 20 years. I would sit there and listen to her plan. I'm going, I don't know what the fuck she's thinking. Army shooting people, Vietnam. That ain't for me. But in her heart, she was like, this is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
They opened up a life to me with no questions. And she came here and prospered with those fucking bars. So she's going to sacrifice me to the government. Like, she was a Kennedy fan.
Mm-hmm.
She refused to go to a Met game if she couldn't go and hear the national anthem.
Yeah.
People don't even give a fuck about the national anthem
Yeah.
no more. My mom beat me if I spoke Spanish on the street because we were in America. We were in fucking America. Now you walk on Broadway, people speaking languages from all over the world. They don't even give a fuck about your feelings or who the fuck you are. When I was growing up one time, a fucking teacher at my grammar school threw 2 kids off for talking Spanish on the bus. And we all were gonna fucking kill them and shit. And when I got home, I told my mom's like, no, you're not. He was right. This is America. They gave us the opportunity to come here. The least you could do is learn the fucking language. You know, this morning I was gonna I saw a sweatshirt I was gonna wear, Roberto Clemente.
Yeah.
And I would look at that guy, and I'm a big fan of his because that guy was super Puerto Rican. But in 1960, he already knew how to speak. Watch his videos. Watch when he went in front of cameras, and always with a suit on, a fucking tie. Roberto Clemente was a savage, and my mother loved him. I still remember when that plane went down.
Crazy.
That was the worst year of my life. That was Clemente, Bruce Lee. Think of all the people that fucking went that year. So it was
What year was that?
73. 70. And Clemente died on New Year's. So you woke up New Year's Day like you're a baseball fan. You just saw this motherfucker at Shea Stadium break 300 hits off fucking John Matlack or one of those humps. You know? Except my Tom Seaver. Don't be bad-mouthing my fucking Tom Seaver.
Dude, that guy, he was unbelievable.
So it was a different world. It was a different set of priorities. And that came back to me. That started coming back to me when I got locked up because it was the first time I had peace since my mother died. It was the first time I wasn't involved in craziness. I had to sit in a room for 6 or 7 hours. And I started thinking about all that shit. And that's when, listen, when I got into comedy, it wasn't to be a star. Look at my face. I'm in no danger.
Oh, you're crazy.
But-
You're crazy.
But I just didn't want to be a criminal no more.